Good morning. It's Wednesday, March 19th, and I'm Ted Keith with your morning Buzzcast. First things first, the first four tipped off last night, meaning March Madness has officially begun. Oh, and don't forget to fill out your bracket. It didn't take long to get our first dramatic finish either, as Alabama State took down St. Francis on a home run pass and layup with 1 second to go. There was no such drama in the nightcap, with North Carolina boat racing San Diego State, leading by as many as 40 points en route to a 27-point win. The Tar Heels were the last team chosen for the field, and even then they were a controversial selection, in part because of their anemic record against top competition and because Athletic Director Bubba Cunningham is the chairman of the selection committee. Cunningham had to feel a little vindicated, or at least breathe a sigh of relief, sitting courtside in Dayton and watching the Heels roll over the Aztecs. I'm sure True TV executives didn't mind having one of the sport's true blue bloods fall in their lap for this game either. One backdrop to this evening's game was the future of the First Four itself. Speculation in recent weeks has centered on the possibility that the NCAA tournament could expand beyond its current 68 teams, a number that has held steady since 2011. If that were to happen, the First Four would potentially have to be reimagined, or maybe even cease to exist, to accommodate the additional teams in the bracket. NCAA's Senior Vice President of Basketball, Dan Gavitt, said last month that there is no guarantee the tournament will expand, and that if it were to happen in time for the 2026 tournament, a decision would have to be reached this spring. The tournament has long felt like it's the perfect size, but that could just be because people are so used to it. This season marks the 40th anniversary of the time it expanded to 64 teams. Just a decade before that, it had half as many teams. There are now more than 350 schools playing Division I men's basketball, and conference realignment has consolidated as many as 18 of them in a single conference. The 16-team SEC got a record 14 schools into March Madness this year, but the 18-team ACC only had 4, including North Carolina. More teams are fighting for the same number of spots and having to push through bigger conference gauntlets to get there. My guess is that tournament expansion is coming one day, perhaps as part of the next round of TV negotiations. The current pact between the NCAA and media partners Paramount and Warner Bros. Discovery ends in 2032. There's no telling what the college sports landscape will look like by then, but it's a good bet everyone will still love March Madness. This year's ad inventory sold out again with historic highs of more than $1 billion in total, and viewership continues to be strong, although championship ratings are down from the previous decade. The women's NCAA tournament holds its own First Four starting tonight, with Iowa State taking on Princeton in the headline matchup. This, of course, is the first women's tournament game of the post-Caitlin Clark era of college basketball. The last women's tournament game featured Clark's Iowa Hawkeyes against powerhouse South Carolina in the national championship game, and it drew a record audience of 18.9 million people on ESPN, up a staggering 90% over the previous year, and a record for any women's basketball game in TV history. How long did the previous record last? All of 2 days, when Clark's Iowa Hawkeyes beat UConn in the Final Four. There's a lot of curiosity as to what those numbers will look like now that the Clark phenomenon has taken over the WNBA. Not to mention the departure of LSU star Angel Reese, who is also in the WNBA and played an important role in boosting interest in women's college basketball. Early signs are certainly strong. ESPN's regular season audience was up 3% compared to last year, and the network's senior VP of production, Meg Aronowitz, told SBJ's Ben Portnoy recently that the Caitlin Clark effect was the catalyst for us to approach the women's tournament in a bigger and better way, and it's afforded us the resources to really even build on what we did last year. It's the crown jewel of our NCAA championship portfolio. End quote. Ad inventory has certainly remained robust, with 95% of inventory sold out and average prices for a 30-second spot up more than double from last year. College basketball is rightfully dominating the sports landscape this week, but it's not been able to overshadow the start of Major League Baseball season. As I'm reading this, the Dodgers and Cubs are playing the second and final game of the Tokyo series in Japan. Joe Lemire had a lot of good info about the start of the season in yesterday's Buzzcast, but it's worth noting just how big a deal this series will be for baseball. Top executives expected going in that it would have an all-star game feel, and that has certainly played out, and not just because of the slew of big names on the Dodgers, like Shohei Ohtani. Commissioner Rob Manfred expects the event will bring in about $35 million in revenue, putting the baseball season off on a very fine footing. Baseball has a lot of positive momentum to build on, with record revenues and a slew of marketable star players that go beyond the cavalry of big names in LA. Still, the ongoing uncertainty with the RSN and labor situations mean that the sport is in for a pivotal year and one that we'll be watching all season long. Soccer history was made yesterday when USL owners voted to adopt a promotion and relegation system, the first time that model will be used in a U.S. league. The USL operates a second and third division league already and is planning to add a new first division tier in 2028, all of which will use the Pro-Rel model. Major League Soccer is unlikely to ever adopt such a model, but this, of course, is the standard in leagues across the world, and now it's going to be put to the test in the U.S. Speaking of soccer, today marks the kickoff of SBJ's first Business of Soccer conference, held alongside leaders in sport and in partnership with MLS and CONCACAF. The two-day event in Marina del Rey, California, will bring major North American stakeholders together with their international counterparts, including MLS Commissioner Don Garber and CONCACAF President Victor Montagliani. Check out our coverage all week long on sportsbusinessjournal.com and in next week's issue of SBJ. That's all for today's edition of Morning Buzzcast. Good luck with your brackets, everyone. I'm Ted Keith, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.